what the NAR settlement means for homebuyers and sellers. Let's take a look at this news article put out by Yahoo Finance a couple weeks ago.
A change is coming to the real estate world. New rules about how real estate agents get paid kick in this Saturday, August 17th. The change comes as part of the National Association of Realtors' $418 million settlement announced in March. The settlement ended an antitrust lawsuit that claimed brokerage conspired to keep agent commissions artificially high. So, how could this impact you when you go to buy?
All right, so let's take a look at their article. So it starts off giving an example. You sold a home for $400,000. It says long-established norms of the industry. You probably pay $20,000 to $24,000 in commissions, which your listing agent split with the buyer's agent. So the question comes up: were their services worth the price? So for years that was a question scarcely asked. So that, I think, right there, that's what is a big driver for this lawsuit that happened and all the rules that are changing. So commissions were an assumed part of the transaction, unofficially non-negotiable. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't negotiable. So they were always negotiable. It just, I know when I bought a house, it wasn't really something that we discussed or anything. It was just kind of assumed the seller was going to pay for it, and that was that. So this new settlement, they say, will likely force agents to compete on pricing and give home buyers and sellers more negotiating power. History of this: in 2019, Missouri home sellers filed a class action lawsuit against NAR, the National Association of Realtors, claiming antitrust. A jury sided with them, awarded nearly $1.8 billion verdict to settle that lawsuit. NAR denied any wrongdoing but agreed to the $418 million to people who've sold homes in recent years. So if you've sold a house in the last few years, you need to take a look, see if you're due any of the settlement. So some other changes. A lot of people hear about the MLS. They are no longer allowed to include the buyer agent's compensation in there. And so buyers will be able to negotiate their own agent's pay and formalize it in a signed contract. I did another video on this called the Written Buyer's Agreement form. Pretty much before many agents can show you a house anymore, either virtually or in person, they're going to ask you to sign a written buyer's agreement that kind of details out what their services are expected, how much their pay is supposed to be, and also how long that agreement is good for. So let's see. Does the agreement kill the 6% commission? Not necessarily. So from what I've been seeing here in Navarre is that a lot of sellers and sellers agents are still offering to split the commission, kind of like it used to be. But a big thing to understand is that you, as the buyer and the seller, this is all negotiable, and it may become a point of negotiation. So the new rule requires buyers to have their own agreement that specifies compensation before they work with an agent. The sellers could still cover the cost. So it doesn't ban agents from advertising commissions now. They just simply can't do it in MLS. So they are still allowed to do it on their own websites, their own social media accounts, and everything like that. So part of the hope is that this would, increase competition, which is always good. We're a capitalistic country. Let's see. So here's one to think about too if you're looking to buy a house. The rule change could prompt agents to offer non-traditional pricing for their services. Could be flat fees, hourly charges, and a la carte pricing instead of taking a commission that's a percentage of the home selling price. So it could be, something like you hit up an agent, you just want them to show you houses, and you're offering to pay them, $50, $100, something like that per showing, instead of locking in an agreement with them for them to represent you when you go to buy a house. Or maybe you already have a house you want to buy, and since you don't want them taking you around showing you, you're like, hey, I just want you to put in this offer for me and represent me this way. This is how much I'm willing to pay, or, something like that. So it could mean pulling apart traditionally bundled offers like home prep, photography, marketing, showings, and negotiations and closing into separate packages and pricing models. Really, this is all things that could have been done before. It's just the way the way I see it, in my opinion, and my very limited experience as a licensed realtor, is that it was just kind of understood and kind of grew into this, that it was expected that the seller would always pay the commission for both agents no matter what. It was their responsibility, and that there was very little negotiation available between them and their agent on how much that commission was, and that it was to be split between them and the buyer's agent. And so part of this is to help buyers understand that, hey, you have power in being responsible for paying your agent, and whether that payment comes out of your pocket, or if you negotiate in the sales contract that it's to come out of the seller's pocket or the seller agent's commissions pocket. So when the buyer makes an offer to the seller, the question of who pays the buyer agent could become another point of negotiation, just like we've been saying. So a home buyer in a hot market may find it tough to persuade a seller to pay their agent's cost, but sellers may agree to foot the bill if they'd otherwise be forced to accept a lower price. So as we go into what do they call it, a buyer's market, sellers might be more willing to foot the bill for your agent. As we go into a seller's market, they might be less likely. It's really not too much of a change, in regards to, for example, like closing costs, and expecting the seller to help pay for part of the closing costs or expecting them not to. Here we go. So right now, commissions generally can't be financed into a mortgage under Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Federal Housing Administration guidelines. So under the current rules, a buyer looking to finance closing costs would likely need to get a personal loan, which may increase your debt-to-income ratio, which could in turn make it harder to get approved for a mortgage. So if you, the buyer, are paying for your agent and you're not doing it with cash and you're having to finance it, that could cause issues with your loan. So right here, we believe that most sellers will continue to be willing to provide funding to the buyers to pay their agents. And so right now, that's a lot of what I've been seeing. When I talk to agents around here in Navarre, I'll call them up, ask them, hey, is your seller offering any compensation to the buyer's agent? And so far, I haven't had anyone tell me no. So first-time home buyers often lack cash and liquid access to help pay for this for their buyer's agent. So there's a legitimate risk of buyers underinvesting in professional representation across all phases to save a few bucks. This leaves them more vulnerable to potentially costly missteps during complex processes like negotiating inspection items, securing optimal financing terms, or handling contracts. So a big question, will this bring down home prices? Decrease transaction costs will help bring prices down slightly, but that's if it actually affects it very much. It might not. If this change goes into effect and all the buyers still want the sellers to, pay for their agents, then, the market speaks, the customer is speaking at that point in time. So it might not have much of a change. But then too, our market is fluid. Supply and demand is always going to affect things. Here we go. I recently sold my home. Am I getting a piece of that $418 million? So it says maybe. As with any lawsuit, a large chunk goes to attorneys, but millions who sold homes are expected to qualify. So as far back as 2014. So if you've sold a house from 2014 to now, go to this website, realestateCommissionLitigation.com, and follow the instructions to see if you are due any part of that $418 million. Go check it out, and if you're due any, get it